This is my stained glass entry door that I made many years ago. And it's backlit. Stained glass is very pretty backlit. So I'm standing in the dark looking into the house so that the stained glass would show up. I have a friend that likes this design in my door and wanted me to make her a quilt with this design. Hi folks, Rachel and I are working on our December project and we wanted to give you just a few tips. This was one of my stained glass designs many years ago. It was an entry door that we've expanded to a lap-size quilt. And we wanted to show you our color scheme is mostly black and white and blues. We're going to have blues for the flowers and white for the lilies, but we did not like this fabric, the blue fabric in there. We decided to change that. We'll show you editing that. But also we wanted to point out, you see we have the background pieces down and how dark those are, and we're using white lilies on top. So we cut out our lilies, we're going to move our magic button over just a little bit to give us a little wider than 1/4 of an inch so that the dark background won't shadow through. I love the light reflected off of the snow. It makes my workroom so light. It's a pleasure to come in here and work, especially when it's cold outside. So we wanted to show you that to make the leaves or the lilies and the seam allowance is a little wider so then that dark won't shadow through. We've just moved the button over just a little bit to cut this out. So your magic button will work for both right-handed and left-handed people. And so it's just a visual guide, but I'm just going to block off this section first. And then I'll have more control. I could have cut it a little smaller, but the button gives us approximately 1/4 of an inch seam allowance when we roll it right on the edge of the freezer paper. But we want to make this just a little wider. So we've just kind of scooted this over maybe 1/8 of an inch. And it helps not to try to do those cuts all at one time, but to do those two pieces or that section in 2 cuts. All right, our magic button, the original magic button was used on an Olfa 28mm rotary cutter. But we've since made a smaller cutter because it helps to manipulate around smaller pieces to do our Magic 2.0. It's on an 18mm rotary cutter. And these, we can just roll that button. Keep this button straight up and down. And you can just manipulate this around there a little easier. And you can pivot the fabric and cut these out. When you see that your threads aren't cutting completely, it's time to change your blade. And we sell these 18mm rotary blades on our website. This one has a little, I'll show you how to change this. It has this little clip. So just move that back. And I set this over here. I have the rotary cutter in the middle, and see this is attached so we don't have to worry about that position, which is nice. I always clean out the fuzz and then very carefully remove the old blade. And I keep an old package. These come in a 2-pack. When I've used the 2-pack up, I go ahead and put the old blade in there because then they're a safer way to dispose of them. So now I'm opening a fresh pack. And very carefully, because they're sharp, they're stuck together, just slide one off. Well, let me put that one there. There we go. Close that up. And then very carefully pick that up because it's very sharp, and put that blade right on top of that screw. That's where our magic button is attached. It doesn't interfere with your magic button. The magic button is attached to that. Slip that over there. Close this up. Well, let's pick it up very carefully and put that in there, the blade and you have to rotate this just a little bit to get it to fit in that hole. So that goes through like that, and then we put that clip back. And then, of course, to keep your blade safe when you're not using it, you just slide it up now. Now let's see if that doesn't make a difference. You don't want to use a dull blade because you're going to have a lot of pieces to cut, and we're only cutting through one layer of fabric. But if it's not cutting right, then it's going to cause some tension in your shoulders. So these are the replacement pieces for the shadowed inside part of our lily, and we're just cutting that at approximately 1/4 of an inch, but the smaller blade is easier to manipulate around small pieces. Right, now the next step, see, we didn't put all these pattern pieces down at once. It would just be too confusing. So we worked with our background first, and now we're going to work with the leaves, which are blue, a couple different shades of blue. So we put our pattern pieces down approximately close to where they're going to be. And we're using one fabric here that has a little bit of direction. So if we're going to use a fabric that has a direction, since this is one leaf, it's behind the lily, we're going to give it an arrow. So we'll know how to place it on our fabric so to get that direction going that way. So those are things that you consider by laying them close to where you're going to be. We have like 3 shades of blue. Then we can pick up the pattern piece and know, well, we just put that on a dark fabric. So let's put this over here, and let's put this one, since it's down here in the middle, let's give that dark. This we want to be lighter on the outside edge. And then we'll put this one here. Anyway, it just gives you a better idea by seeing the color placement of where you want to place certain shades of leaves. And you just saw how we can edit something. So if you put something down and you don't like it, you can change it. One of the typical problems people make when they're doing this technique is to turn too much at a time. So you only turn where the pieces are touching. And here we already put this piece down. We could have waited to put this piece down until that was there. So how are we going to fix that? Everything is fine here. Something will be on top. But all we have to do is turn under that little piece right there. So I'm going to make a small clip. I'm making a small clip in the seam allowance with that pattern piece. And so now all I have to turn here is from this clip there. So the thing is, you have to pay attention, especially when you're going to get into our more complicated pieces. You have to pay close attention and only turn the things that are going to be touching or what is on top, because something else will hide those seam allowances. So I want you to be very happy with no sewing until you quilt it. I want you to be excited about what you can do with this technique. But it is a very good idea to study my book, to do some of the beginning projects, because it takes you through the whole process, learning how to do points, learning how to do curves, learning how to think about your design for more complex issues. So it is a good idea, really, to learn this technique before you go off on your own. But once you learn the technique, you're going to be excited about all the possibilities.